This is the story of a giant, of its birth, of its growth, and its purpose and place on the American scene. The giant is an electric sign, colorful, active, beautiful, the product of Young Electric Sign Company of Salt Lake City, Utah, and Las Vegas, Nevada. Where does an electric sign have its beginning? Let's find out. First, you need a customer, someone who needs a sign to advertise their product or place of business. In this instance, an owner of a new casino to be called The Mint in the gambling center of Las Vegas. The story begins at the Las Vegas office of the Young Electric Sign Company, when an idea was born for what was to be the most beautiful sign ever to grace the skies of Las Vegas, showcase of modern electrical advertising. Mr. Herman Bernge and Kermit Wayne conceived a fundamental idea behind the sign. Suggestions, though, came from throughout the staff and were heartily welcomed. This practice ensures that we will come up with the best possible design. We worked especially close with architects Zick and Sharp of Las Vegas, designers of the building which will house the Mint. Chief designer for Young Electric Sign Company, Ben Jones, masterminded the overall structural detail of the sign. The sign will be a giant of structural steel, neon tubing, incandescent lights, and electrical wiring. The idea was again discussed, changed somewhat, redesigned, and finally an acceptable rough came into being. The sign had to be the biggest, the brightest, the most beautiful sign ever. Letter style, color, design, method of lighting, all had to be taken into consideration, along with details too numerous to mention. And now, the artist's finished depiction in full color, ready for the customer's approval or disapproval. Hooray! Approval given. Now work can go ahead full speed. But now comes the tedious work in the engineering department. Ben Jones and Bob Gilbert worked out details of constructing and tying in the sign with the building. Engineering details had to be discussed with the art department, as everyone works together as a team. Miles of neon tubing began taking shape, were assembled for processing and mounting on the sign. Tedious work this, but expert work by craftsmen unmatched in their field. Each electrode, and there are two to each unit of glass, must be set in place by hand. The tube is pumped of air to make a perfect vacuum, and the rare gas neon is placed in the tube. Hundreds of pieces of tubing had to be welded together. Again, a process best accomplished by hand to assure strength and straightness. And then to the aging rack and a period of burning in. But the electrical department was also busily placing the light globe sockets and stringing miles of electric wire. Here again, the tedious but effective method of doing by hand ate up precious time. And another branch of the team, the steel construction department, was busily engaged in preparing steel frames for assembling, fitting, and so on. Everything must be exact to ensure proper fit when the sign is finally put together. As the work mushroomed, the confines of the plant became too small, and work moved to the outside yard. As the sections grew together, like the giant pieces of a puzzle, they began to resemble a miniature roller coaster. The vast amount of steel truss work is necessary for the sign to be self-supporting. And once all the truss work is done, the steel skin is put into place. The work is very much like building a living thing. The steel truss work representing a skeleton, the steel sheets of skin, and the electrical wiring providing the lifeblood of our giant. Of course, the sign couldn't be moved from our plants as one huge unit, so it was again broken down into sections. This also facilitates construction handling and transportation. These Pyrex spring bushings for the neon tubes represent a modern, convenient method of holding and lighting the tubes, and they facilitate speed in changing tubes. Color, vivid color, is applied to the sign skin in YESCO's modern spray room. Only the finest automotive synthetic enamels are used. They are necessary for the sign to stand up under the elements of sun, wind, and rain. And the color, picked especially to attract attention. Meanwhile, in Las Vegas, the building itself is taking shape. The contractor began to cast some weary eyes toward YESCO. Will the sign be done in time? It must be built right into the building to provide support for its weight, and opening night isn't too far away. But happily, some of the first sections were already on the way, rolling towards installation. And if need be, some things can even be speeded up to help out. But gradually, with the assembling of sections, their painting, addition of the neon tubing, and all things necessary, the units were ready for installation on the building. Only one thing threatened trouble. Our truck is capable of handling 2 sections at a time, and something has to be done. The Williamson truck body people of Ogden and Salt Lake came to the rescue with a specially constructed lowboy trailer which would carry as much weight as the truck itself. Thus, double loads made the trips faster and fewer. All in all, there were 7 such trips made, and the sign was ready for assembling and placing in position on the building. At the location of the mint, first things to go up at the mint were the arch sections and the letters on the front. But a lot of work goes on behind the scenes too, especially in the switching room. Here, the flashing mechanism for operation of the sign is installed.